Crab can sit in the same tide pool for 6 years straight. Crab can watch the same 3 fish swim past every single day and somehow still find it more appealing than moving 4 feet to the left. Crab can feel a slightly bigger shell sitting right there, completely empty, completely available, and choose to stay squeezed into a shell 2 sizes too small rather than make the move. Here is the paradox. Crab knows the bigger shell means more room, more protection, more room to grow claws that actually fit. But crab still prefers the cramped, familiar shell over the brief discomfort of switching. Why is that? Why do some crabs out there seem to upgrade shells every single season, while this crab would rather stay squeezed and slightly uncomfortable forever? And the big question is there a way to trick crab brain into actually liking the discomfort of the upgrade? Part 1. The shell. Crab was not born loving small spaces. Crab was born needing them. Out in the open ocean, soft and exposed, a baby crab without a shell is just a snack with legs. So evolution gave crab one simple rule. Find something hard, climb inside, stay there. That rule kept crab alive for millions of years. But here's the problem. That same rule now applies to literally everything in crab's life. The job that stopped fitting 2 years ago, the relationship that got cramped a long time back, the comfort zone that used to protect crab and now just restricts him. Crab's brain cannot tell the difference between a shell that is protecting him and a shell that is suffocating him. Both feel exactly the same. Safe, known, don't move. Part 2. The coral reef experiment. To understand why discomfort feels so unbearable to crab, let's look at his cousins out on the reef. Marine biologists once placed hermit crabs in a tank with shells slightly too small and shells noticeably bigger sitting right next to them. The crabs noticed the bigger shells immediately, approached them, even touched them, and then went straight back to the cramped one. Researchers tested this for weeks. The crabs would only switch when the small shell became physically painful, cracking, pinching, actually drawing blood. Pain, not opportunity, was the only thing that finally moved them. Here's the scary part. Crab's brain works the exact same way. It is not designed to move toward better. It is designed to move away from unbearable. And discomfort, by definition, is bearable. Just barely. Which means crab can stay stuck in something slightly too small for literally years. Researchers actually tracked how long crabs stayed in shells that had become genuinely restrictive. The average was not days. It was not weeks. Some crabs stayed in shells so small their growth had visibly deformed around the edges. The body had adapted to the cage rather than leaving it. Let that sink in for crab for a moment. The body adapted to the cage rather than leaving it. That is not weakness. That is just how badly the brain prioritizes the known over the better. Part 3. Discomfort tolerance. Crab's brain has a rule called homeostasis. It always tries to return to the same baseline. Too cold, crab burrows down. Too exposed, crab retreats. Same thing happens with discomfort. When crab avoids anything remotely uncomfortable, scrolling instead of calling, staying instead of leaving, snacking instead of training, his tolerance for discomfort shrinks. The muscle that handles hard feelings gets weaker from disuse, so the next uncomfortable thing feels even bigger than it actually is. It's like a crab who only ever swims in the shallow end. The first time real current hits him, it feels like a tsunami. Not because the current is actually that strong, because crab's tolerance dropped to almost nothing. This is called discomfort intolerance, and it explains why crab treats a slightly awkward conversation like a life-threatening event. His brain isn't broken, it's just under-exercised. Think about how strange this actually is. Crab can survive in freezing tide pools, get tossed by waves, lose a claw, and grow a new one. Crab is, biologically speaking, built for hardship. But emotionally, a single uncomfortable text message can shut him down for an entire day. That gap between physical resilience and emotional resilience is not natural. It is trained, which means it can also be untrained. Part 4. The cold shell method. Crab decided to try something radical, deliberately uncomfortable exposure, on purpose, in small controlled doses. Picture this. Crab, who has spent his whole life in warm, shallow tide pools, suddenly dips one claw into colder water for 10 seconds. Brutal at first. Then his body adjusts. 10 seconds becomes 30. 30 becomes a full minute. That's the logic. You cannot build tolerance to discomfort by avoiding it. You build it by taking small, safe, deliberate doses of it until your nervous system stops treating it like an emergency. 2 ways Crab can do this. Method 1, the cold dip. Pick one small uncomfortable thing daily. A hard conversation, a cold shower, an uncomfortable question you've been avoiding. Sit in it for 60 seconds without escaping. Method 2, the slow current. Once a week, do one thing that scares you slightly more than usual. Not terrifying, just slightly past your edge. The goal isn't punishment, it's recalibration. Lower the threshold for what counts as unbearable. Make discomfort feel ordinary. Again. Part 5. The reward shell. Crab realized something important. He couldn't just suffer constantly. Crabs need comfort too. So he built a system. Discomfort first, reward after. If Crab does the comfortable thing first, scrolling before the hard task, snacking before the workout, the discomfort never happens. Motivation evaporates. The second comfort arrives early. Instead, Crab flips the order. Uncomfortable thing first, comfort earned after. One uncomfortable conversation earns 15 minutes of pure relaxation. One cold exposure session earns the warm sun on the rock afterward. The key, the reward never comes before the discomfort. Ever. The warm rock only happens after the cold water. This sounds obvious once you say it out loud, but almost nobody actually lives this way. Most crabs scroll first and work later, snack first and train later, relax first and have the hard conversation later. And then wonder why the hard conversation never seems to happen. The order is the entire trick. Comfort is not the problem. Comfort taken too early is the problem. Part 6. 5 tricks to outsmart crab brain. Once Crab understands the system, a few extra tricks make it even easier. Trick 1. Shrink it. Crab hates jumping into ice water. Crab doesn't mind dipping one claw for 5 seconds. Make the uncomfortable thing embarrassingly small at first. Trick 2. Name it before you feel it. Right before something hard, Crab says out loud, "This is supposed to feel uncomfortable, that means it's working." Naming the sensation removes its power to surprise him. Trick 3. Borrow the burn. Crab thinks of soreness after a hard swim. That ache doesn't mean something is wrong. It means something is changing. Crab starts treating emotional discomfort the exact same way. Trick 4. Crab squad. Crab alone avoids everything. Crab with other crabs going through the same discomfort suddenly doesn't want to be the one who quit first. Shared discomfort becomes almost enjoyable. Trick 5. Identity shift. Crab, who says, "I am someone who avoids hard things," stays in the small shell forever. Crab, who says, "I am someone who moves toward discomfort," eventually starts doing exactly that. Behavior always follows identity. Part 7. The choice of shells. At the end of the day, discomfort isn't actually Crab's enemy. It's the exact mechanism that tells him he is about to outgrow something. The question is never, how do I avoid discomfort? The question is always, which discomfort is actually growth in disguise, and which one is just unnecessary suffering? Crab doesn't need to chase pain. Crab needs to stop confusing the discomfort of growing with the danger of actual harm. Once Crab learns the difference, the small shell stops feeling safe. It starts feeling exactly like what it is. Too small, outgrown, done. There is one more thing Crab eventually realizes. Sitting at the edge of his old shell, claws touching the new one for the very first time without pulling back. The fear never fully disappears. It doesn't need to. Crab does not wait until he feels ready. He simply stops letting the feeling make the decision for him. The discomfort comes along for the move. It just no longer gets to vote on whether the move happens. So the next time you feel that tight, uncomfortable, slightly too small feeling in some part of your life, remember Crab. It's not a warning to retreat. It's a sign you're finally big enough to leave. The Crab says, "Thanks. Like this video. Toss him a subscribe." It keeps the bigger shells coming.